They can smile in your face. They can charm their way through conversations. But do you know who they really are? You don't need months to figure it out. You just need to watch two things, and these two things never lie. We live in a world where appearances dominate, where what someone seems to be can trick even the sharpest observer. But what if I told you that underneath every handshake, every compliment, there are two simple clues that reveal someone's true nature? Clues that even they can't hide, no matter how hard they try. Today, we'll break down exactly what they are, how to spot them, and how to protect yourself from the illusion of good people who may not be so good after all. Stay with me. This knowledge might just save you years of disappointment. The problem with trust is that we give it too easily or withhold it when it's deserved. People enter our lives wearing masks, sometimes unknowingly, sometimes with intent. Think about it. How many times have you been blindsided by someone you thought you knew? A friend? A colleague? A romantic partner? They seemed perfect until the cracks showed, but by then, it was too late. The issue isn't that people change, it's that their true selves were always there. You just weren't looking in the right places. But here's the good news. There's a shortcut. No need to dig through months of behavior. Instead, two key behaviors will expose the truth. How someone treats those they don't need and how they handle their promises. Let's start with the first one. Number 1. How they treat those they don't need. Imagine you're sitting at a dinner table and everything seems perfect. The ambiance is warm, the food smells divine, and the conversation is flowing. But then the waiter brings the wrong order to the table, and suddenly your friend's demeanor changes. Their polite tone vanishes. Their eyes narrow, and they bark at the waiter like they're disciplining a misbehaving pet. They call the mistake unacceptable and demand it be fixed immediately. Then, as if flipping a switch, they turn back to you, grinning as though nothing happened. What you just saw wasn't about bad service. It wasn't about the food. It was a flash of their true nature, a crack in the mask. You see, how someone treats people who hold no power over them, whether it's a waiter, a janitor, or a stranger on the street, is a window into their character. These interactions are raw and unpolished because they aren't motivated by personal gain. When someone believes they have nothing to lose, they reveal who they really are. There's no performance, no reward, and no reputation to uphold. Just the truth. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But those who lack this understanding often project their inner turmoil outward. Their thoughts, emotions, and insecurities bleed into their actions. A person who belittles or demeans others usually carries an inflated ego or deep-rooted fear of inadequacy. Their need to exert dominance is their way of compensating for internal weakness. Now, let's be honest. Everyone has bad days. But that's not what we're talking about here. There's a difference between occasional frustration and a pattern of mistreatment. The person who yells at waitstaff today probably treated the janitor at their office poorly last week. The person who dismisses a retail worker as incompetent likely has a track record of seeing others as disposable. Character isn't determined by one bad interaction, it's defined by consistent patterns. And let's not forget the excuses. How many times have you heard someone say, "I was just in a bad mood," or "I didn't mean it"? These justifications may sound convincing, but over time, they lose their power. Someone who constantly needs to explain away their behavior isn't facing a temporary lapse. They're revealing who they are at their core. The mask slips, but the truth stays. Contrast this with those who carry kindness as part of their identity. Take Keanu Reeves, for example. You won't find him screaming at a waiter or snapping at a fan who asks for a photo. Why? Because his empathy doesn't turn on and off based on who's watching. It's authentic. He's the same person whether he's in a crowded room or walking down an empty street. When he helps someone, it's not for applause, it's because respect is ingrained in him. This consistency is what separates genuine individuals from performers. Performers will treat you kindly if they believe you can elevate their status or fulfill a need. But when they encounter someone Invisible to their ambitions, their mask falls off. Genuine people, on the other hand, don't have reason to be kind. Their empathy and humility are reflexes, not tactics. So, here's the question you need to ask yourself. When you observe someone interacting with invisible people, what do you see? When the barista makes a mistake with their order, do they sigh in frustration or offer a kind word? When they pass a janitor mopping the floor, do they acknowledge them with a smile or walk by as though they don't exist? If someone can't show respect to those who hold no power, how can you trust them to respect you when times get tough? Empathy isn't just a virtue, it's a litmus test for integrity. And once you learn how to read this, you'll stop falling for charming words and start valuing honest actions. This one test can save you from investing in relationships, personal or professional, that were destined to disappoint you. Number 2, whether they keep their promises. Promises aren't just words, they're invisible contracts that bind trust between people. When someone says, "I'll be there," they're not just offering their presence, they're offering you a piece of their reliability, their integrity, and their respect for your time. So when they break that promise, it's not just disappointing, it's a betrayal, no matter how small it may seem. Let's think about it. How many broken promises have you shrugged off, thinking, "It's fine"? Life happens? Maybe it's a friend who swore they'd call you back but never did. Maybe it's a colleague who promised to finish their part of the project but ghosted at the last minute. You may have forgiven them once, twice, even 3 times, but what if the pattern keeps repeating? At what point does their word become meaningless? Promises matter because they're rooted in consistency. Integrity isn't defined by what someone does when everything is easy and convenient. It's about what they do when life gets messy, when the promise they made becomes inconvenient, or when they have an easy way out. Do they follow through or do they fold? Think of it like this. Imagine you ask a friend to help you move on a Saturday. They say yes, and you make plans based on that commitment. But Friday night rolls around, and they send you a message, "Something came up. Sorry, can't make it." On the surface, it seems innocent enough. Plans change. Things happen. But let's dig deeper. Why did they commit if they weren't willing to honor it when things got tough? Did they mean it when they said yes? Or was it just a polite response to avoid confrontation in the moment? This is where integrity gets tested. Not by whether someone can make a promise, but by whether they can keep it when it's no longer convenient. Psychologists refer to this as the consistency principle, the idea that past behavior is often the best predictor of future behavior. If someone repeatedly breaks their word, you can almost guarantee they'll do it again. Their behavior isn't random, it's a pattern. The friend who cancels at the last minute doesn't suddenly become dependable just because the stakes are higher. And here's the dangerous part. The most deceptive individuals aren't the ones who blatantly lie. They're the ones who convince themselves they're still good people, despite breaking their promises. They hide behind excuses like, "I didn't have a choice," or "It wasn't my fault." The problem isn't that they forgot their commitment. It's that they've mastered the art of self-deception. They believe their own excuses so deeply that they see themselves as victims of circumstance rather than as the cause of the disappointment. Let's turn to Marcus Aurelius again, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers. He understood human flaws better than most, but he also believed in personal accountability. He taught that when you fail to honor a commitment, it's not enough to apologize or explain it away. You must reflect on why you failed, take responsibility, and do better next time. That's what separates people of character from those who float through life, leaving broken promises in their wake. Integrity doesn't require perfection. It requires self-awareness. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be honest with yourself and others. When you say you'll do something, you do it. When you can't, you admit your failure and learn from it. That's the Stoic way. But someone who continually breaks their word without reflecting on the damage they cause is someone who cannot be trusted. Here's a practical tip. Stop paying attention to what people say when they make promises. Instead, watch what they do after the promise is made. Did they show up? Did they finish what they started? Or did they ghost you with a weak excuse and an "I'll make it up to you" that never materializes? Their actions will always tell you what their words won't. And remember this, a promise isn't just a reflection of their character, it's a window into their priorities. When someone breaks a promise, they're showing you what matters most to them. If they consistently let you down, it means they don't see you, or their word, as a priority. Think of it this way. If someone cancels plans with you to binge watch a television show or meet up with someone else, they're sending a message, even if they don't say it directly. The message is, you were convenient, but only until something better came along. It's not about the excuse, it's about the underlying mindset. Now, flip the perspective. Think of someone in your life who always keeps their promises. No matter how tired they are, no matter how busy their day is, they show up when they say they will. They don't have to be perfect, but they're reliable. Their word holds weight because they respect both you and themselves enough to honor their commitments. This is the kind of person who deserves your trust. On the other hand, if someone constantly makes promises only to break them, it's time to stop hoping they'll change. Hope isn't a strategy. Patterns don't lie. If someone's integrity falters in the little things, don't expect them to suddenly become reliable when it really counts. In the end, promises reveal more than intentions. They reveal someone's core values. A person who values honesty and respect will guard their promises fiercely, even if it's inconvenient. Someone who doesn't value those things will break them the moment they feel the slightest discomfort. So, next time someone says, "I promise," don't just take their word for it. Watch what they do next. Their actions will tell you everything you need to know about who they really are. Key moment. When you combine these two observations, how someone treats those they don't need, and whether they honor their promises, you've uncovered a tool that goes beyond surface-level charm, good manners, or even someone's reputation. These two simple yet profound indicators create a magnifying glass that burns away the masks people wear and reveals who they truly are. Think about it. You don't need years of experience or detective-like intuition to gauge someone's character. All you need is the ability to observe these two key behaviors consistently. No matter how persuasive they are, no matter how well they speak or how charismatic they seem, they cannot fake these two things for long. Because there's a limit to how much anyone can pretend. Eventually, the truth leaks through their actions when they think no one is watching or when they're faced with a decision that puts their integrity to the test. It's often in the small moments, the moments most people overlook, where the deepest truths lie. Imagine this in action. Someone at work is known for being friendly and cooperative with their manager. They're always smiling and offering help when the boss is around. But when the janitor spills something in the hallway, they mutter under their breath, complaining about how it's not their job to deal with it. Or consider a friend who constantly tells you they got your back, but bails the moment you need them to show up, claiming they have something urgent to take care of. In both cases, the truth about these people is staring you in the face. They can wear the mask of reliability and kindness, but only until they're in a situation where they think the consequences are minimal. Now, here's the twist, and this is where things get personal. It isn't just about seeing through others. This test is also a mirror. It's easy to point out flaws in others, but real growth comes when you turn that same lens inward and examine yourself. Ask yourself, how do you behave when you encounter someone who can't do anything for you? How do you act when the cashier is slow or the delivery driver forgets part of your order? Are you the kind of person who rolls their eyes, taps their foot, and sighs in frustration? Or do you show grace and patience, recognizing that everyone deserves dignity, regardless of their role? The truth is, how you treat others when they're invisible says more about your soul than any self-assessment ever could. The same goes for promises. How often do you make commitments out of politeness, only to back out when it becomes inconvenient? Do you tell yourself, it's not a big deal, they'll understand? Or do you honor your commitments, knowing that your word defines your credibility not just in others' eyes, but in your own? This reflection isn't meant to be comfortable. It's meant to challenge you, because the character you see in others will always reflect the character you're building within yourself. If you want to surround yourself with trustworthy, compassionate, and dependable people, you must first embody those traits. Marcus Aurelius often emphasized this principle. You cannot control the actions of others, but you can always control your own. And in doing so, you set the standard for who you allow into your life. Think of it like this. Every time you choose kindness over cruelty, you're making a deposit into your character bank. Every time you keep a promise, even when it's inconvenient, you're strengthening your integrity. And when you consistently live this way, you naturally start attracting others who live by the same values. On the flip side, if you tolerate broken promises and dismiss bad behavior as just how they are, you'll find yourself surrounded by people who reflect those same flaws. Here's the ultimate takeaway. Understanding character is a two-way street. It's about recognizing patterns in others, but it's also about recognizing what you're willing to accept and who you're becoming in the process. The character you allow into your life will mirror the character you've developed within yourself. That's why this test isn't just about protection, it's about growth. The more you cultivate empathy, integrity, and self-awareness, the more naturally you'll filter out those who lack these traits. Because in the end, it's not just about avoiding people who might hurt you. It's about becoming the kind of person who wouldn't hurt others. To truly know someone, you don't need complicated tests or years of observation. Pay attention to how they treat those who can't do anything for them and whether they keep their word. These two clues will guide you better than any list of red flags. And when you practice this awareness, not only will your relationships improve, but you'll become the kind of person who's worth knowing, genuine, reliable, and compassionate. If you found this valuable, hit subscribe and watch the next video on how Stoicism can transform your relationships.